Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. Today we're going to be talking all about Ernest Saves Christmas to celebrate episode 200 of That D Plus Show, and our last episode of the year here. Joining me once again, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, have a crazy Kwanzaa. Let's have some happy holidays.
There you go. Logan was planning on joining us, but he apparently got his COVID booster shot yesterday and is not up for it tonight. So he let us know he wasn't going to be able to make it, but I'm sure he sends his well wishes as well. Ernest Saves Christmas. It was... As we've done, this is our fourth year of like holiday themed December episodes. Running out of a lot of like big things to hit, and so I was scrolling through like the Disney Plus holiday collection, and I saw this one. I was like, you know what, that would probably be a fun one to do. Let's see what Ernest Saves Christmas is all about. We were talking a little bit while you were watching it, Cam. I don't know if I've ever actually seen Ernest Saves Christmas, or if I have, it was at such a young age in my life that I've repressed any memory of it. Mm-hmm. Like, as I was watching it, I definitely remembered a lot of the Ernestisms.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like, even those I haven't heard in probably 20, 30 years, maybe even. And so it was like...
Good chance, yeah.
Wild hearing like just so much of that and like the Jim Varney-ness of it all. The one I really grew up with or remember like vividly was Ernest Scared Stupid, the Halloween one.
Well, because it's horrifying. It's like
exactly,
it's visceral.
It was horrifying for 7-year-old Trevor or whatever I was at the time. But like I somehow watched it over and over again, even though I'm not the horror guy. I've never been the horror guy.
It's probably like one of the scariest non-squeamishy scary horror movies of all time. I like legitimately it is. Like there is something about that movie that it just nails. Like I just watched it a couple of years ago. It nails the entire feeling and aesthetic that is horror to a T. Mm-hmm. And it freaking nails it. From costume design all the way to but it still has like intense Jim Varney vibes to it. Yeah. It's an Ernest movie through and through, but is by far like the outlier of all the Ernest movies.
It's like, for me, it was like the creepy troll thing in
that's big.
Like it was just so grotesque and disgusting that it was like absolutely burned in my brain. I'm like even that, I guess I say burned in my brain, like I haven't thought about or seen that thing in a while, but I Googled it while we're talking here and I'm like, oh yeah, no, that horrified me as a kid. I mean, like even now looking at it, it's just like, that's a gross thing. But yeah. So diving in, general housekeeping. If you like the show, we'd love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with friends, all that fun stuff. As I said, this will be the last episode of the year here. We're kind of taking an end of the year break, so there won't be an episode on the 29th, the final Friday of December here. We'll be back in January once we are kind of up and ready to do like our Game of the Year stuff and our Movie of the Year stuff over on That Nerdy Site show. And that's just when we'll also get back into the run of that D Plus stuff. I know like the Percy Jackson series has come out.
Yeah.
We'll have What If Season 2 coming out in the next week or so. So we'll have definitely some stuff to kind of catch up on here in 2024. But yeah, if you like the show, love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So diving into the history lesson, this was originally released November 11th, 1988, when I was a wee 3 years old. And you were a wee not born yet.
I wasn't born yet. This is a good year before I was born.
Yeah. Other releases of the time, around the time of this movie, there was not a lot. Like, I'll get into it, but like, I had to kind of scroll all the way back up to like July 15th, 1988 for like a really recognizable movie. Like, there were a couple others where I was like, okay, I at least remember that. But Die Hard was the big summer blockbuster that year, July 15th, 1988. When we get closer to Ernest Saves Christmas here, October 21st, we had the duet of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, and Mystic Pizza with young Julia Roberts. We had October 29th was the epic Moonwalker film that's basically like the Michael Jackson extended music video for Moonwalker. And I think that's also where we get Smooth Criminals in there and stuff like that. And I remember playing the arcade game Moonwalker many a day growing up. We had They Live, November 4th.
Hells yeah, They Live is so good.
Rowdy Piper movie that gave us I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Classic.
It might be vice versa. And the epic They Live fight that is often parodied and stuff like South Park. November 9th was Child's Play. And here on November 11th, Ernest Saves Christmas. One of the trivia things I saw was basically like, Child's Play prevented Ernest Saves Christmas from being the number one at the box office that year or that week. So sad, but there you go. Chucky lives on. The November 18th gave us the dueling animated classics, or one classic and one forgotten, The Land Before Time and Oliver and Company. November 23rd, the classic Scrooged with Bill Murray. December 2nd, The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad with Leslie Nielsen. December 9th, Twins. I didn't remember Twins being like that old. I felt like that was one like when I was a kid, not when I was 3.
Well, I mean, it's also
it was probably like on cable
or the VHS market. Like the VHS market, the length and lifetime of movies, like it was extended because there was just only so much that would come out on tape. Mm-hmm. And so it was a big deal if your thing got a VHS. Then, direct to video became like the misnomer for having a bad movie.
Yeah. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was December 14th, and Dangerous Liaisons and Rain Man came out December 16th. So this is in an era where Box Office Mojo's numbers are probably real crap, and they did not change at all between domestic and worldwide, so I'm just kind of lumping it all in here in one. But I'm curious where you think, with its $28.2 million, Ernest Saves Christmas landed. And that's, for inflationists, that's about $72 million in 2023 money.
You said it was the thing that kept it from being the number one at the box office was Child's Play, so it was number 2, right?
That week.
Oh, that week.
That weekend. Opening weekend. Sorry.
Oh man, probably.
No, I'll give you a hint. It's nowhere near the top 10.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a really low number for 88.
Yeah. I was like, number 10 is Beetlejuice with 73.7 million.
Oh, so it did better than Beetlejuice.
No.
Oh wait, how much did it make?
28.2.
Oh million. Gosh, okay.
I always forget. You never look at the doc as we're talking through this.
I try to be surprised.
Yeah, it was $72 million in today's money.
That's right.
But
okay.
It was 28.2 million
back then.
In 1988.
I mean, the Ernest movies never did well.
This is another bit of trivia. This was the highest grossing of the theatrically released Ernest movies.
Makes sense. I mean, it's probably the most. I don't think it's the best one. I think Goes to Prison or Scared Stupid are the best ones. I mean, I would like 20th.
20th was The Land Before Time with 48 million.
Oh wow! So it's way down. Oh man.
Yeah, we'll just kind of do this. We'll play high low until you get there, I guess, since we don't have Logan to kind of compete against.
Yeah. 34th.
34th, Child's Play, ironically.
Oh wow!
33.2 million.
Oh gosh. 42nd.
42nd, Gorillas in the Mist with 24.7 million. So we're now below. So it's between Gorillas in the Mist and so it's between 42 and 34.
It's between Grills and Mist and Child's Play.
Yeah.
38.
38, right on the money.
There
Ernest
we
Saves Christmas, 28.2 million.
Gosh.
Yeah.
But I mean, it couldn't have been an expense. I think the most expensive thing would have been the CGI on it.
Oh,
right?
I mean, yeah, it probably. I mean, let's see if Box Office Mojo has any of the financial stuff on it. Doesn't look like it has like the cost associated with it, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely from an era where Disney was much better at like managing the amount of money it was brought in versus like how much it cost. So yeah, I'm sure it made money, especially since it's very early in the Ernest run. One of the trivia things I have is basically like after seeing a preview of this movie, Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberger like pulled the director for a lunch, and the director was like, "Oh, that's it. They're changing my contract," kind of thing. And it was no, yes, we're changing your contract, but instead of a 3-picture deal, we want to up it to a 6-picture deal. So yeah,
it paid off.
They kept making them for a few more years after this.
I feel like the Ernest movies are one of those like it fits perfectly for like the horror genre. Horror genre movies are cheap to make and usually make more money than they cost.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like comedies were that for the longest time too.
For years.
Very super low budget comedy kind of thing.
Which is why like comedic actors would get like outrageous salaries, like Jim Carrey or trying to think of anyone.
Eddie Murphy,
Mike Myers, Mike Myers. Yeah, not Michael Myers. Mike Myers. Yeah. Like they used to get like pretty huge, hefty, like amounts from their movies, but they were usually the most expensive cost.
Yeah,
but that was what was drawing people to see the movie at the time. So definitely not the case now. Movies just are a completely different beast.
Yeah, some notable things ahead of it. The 1988 re-release of Bambi was number 28 with 39 million.
Bambi beat Ernest, man.
Yeah, a re-release of Bambi specifically. But yeah, we get up to number 14. That you imagine, I believe, was Willow.
Absolutely, Willow's a classic.
With
Abbott Family Classic certified.
57 million. Rambo 3 was number 16. So it was back then. But yeah, Beetlejuice was number 10, 73.7 million. Cocktail, number 9, 78.2.
Oh, Tom Cruise spinning drinks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Naked Gun was number 8 with 78.7 million. Die Hard, only at number 7 with 83 million, despite the classic that it would of course become. Crocodile Dundee 2 was 109.3 million at number 6. Twins at 111.9 million at number 5. Big was 114.9 million.
Tom Hanks, let's go.
4. Coming to America at number 3, 128.1 million.
An incredible classic film.
Yeah.
One of my favorite the movies that made us episode that ever came out too, by the way.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit, number 2 with 156.4 million.
There we go.
And then number 1 that year was an odd one for me, but it was Rain Man, 172.8 million.
Massively successful movie.
Yeah.
Incredible, like long-lasting legacy. Brought massive awareness to institutions, and like it's funny when you hear like you read old stories where it's like, or like you hear from somebody be like, yeah, I was talking to my dad, and all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I had a brother. And it's like, what do you mean you had a brother? Oh yeah, when I was like little, they took him away. And it's like, what was wrong with him? Did he commit a crime? Oh no, he was just mentally handicapped. So they used to like just put him away in these places where nobody would find him, or nobody would they'd just be out of the way for people. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that was like a thing that we let happen. And then, this is, for people who don't know, this is how Geraldo became famous. He was a local reporter, and he got an employee to let him into the largest sanatorium in New York. And what he exposed there with a crew, like a camera crew, absolutely like energized a whole like reform. Unfortunately, the downside of it was used by Republicans as an excuse to cut funding for public health care. And so all those people didn't get the help they needed. They were just put out and shoved out onto the street. So
sounds so starkly different from what we see the last 30 years.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like they went from bad to potentially worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not good overall. Right on. But anyway, back to
back to Ernest Saves Christmas. We have a runtime of 1 hour and 35 minutes.
Classic,
nice brisk movie. In the Ernest timeline, we had 1987 Ernest Goes to Camp. And technically there is like an uncredited cameo in some other movie where he's like as Ernest, but Ernest Goes to Camp is the first Ernest movie. Then there's Hey Vern, It's Ernest was the TV series. Oh, and also prior to this, the way Ernest gets created is a whole bunch of like commercials and stuff like that.
Yeah, Jim Varney was a like stand-up comedian that was a character actor.
Yeah.
Or like did impressions and stuff, which is why his impressions are always incredible.
Which is why he's in here doing John Wayne and
his actually funny enough, I think I've seen like or I've heard on like an album that I was like, oh, I think the snake guy that he does here is like a character that he's done before.
Oh, probably. I mean, a lot of them are characters he's either done before or will do again over the many years. It was so weird. I was gonna bring it up later, but like seeing this, it's like he is like parts Jim Carrey, parts Larry the Cable Guy, parts Eddie Murphy. Like he's doing all of the things that like those comedians like made their thing. Like all the face and mugging stuff he's doing in here is super up Jim Carrey's alley. Obviously the like him playing so many different characters and stuff,
is the
Eddie Murphy stuff, and then like the you know what I mean, and just that whole like dumber than he really is kind of act being super Larry the Cable Guy,
like the rural like somebody who's smart rurally, that whole like blue collar aspect of like rural America or like the South Appalachia, etc. Like definitely fits within that vibe. One of the things like this movie takes place in Florida, and it's like this movie 100% knew where it was taking place and fed right into it, and it was perfect because it's like Florida never changes, man. Florida's always been Florida.
Yeah, we will dive into a little bit of that later. But yeah, the Hey Vern, It's Ernest TV series was basically like airing only 13 episodes, which I was like, I feel like that was so much bigger when I was a kid.
Well, it was so syndicated.
Again, it's only 13 episodes though, so like why was it syndicated? Like syndication usually hit like at 100 episodes was very much the thing when we were kids
for like regular shows, but for like cartoons syndication could be as little as
this wasn't a cartoon though.
Oh, it was an actual live
it was
action?
What did
I think
action.
It was a cartoon.
I don't know.
The weird that was I'm not surprised because he is like the entire Ernest character is such a like
he's very like Max Headroom is very much of this same kind of era stuff. So yeah, it was like the weird era where like commercial ideas played all the time on national TV, so those characters became characters. It'd be like if the Sonic guys got their own show, or hell, it happened the last time I remember it happening was the Geico Caveman.
Yep, the Caveman. Yep. That was the last time that it was like that's when Caveman did so bad that it killed off the genre of commercials becoming TV shows.
Yeah. But yeah, it basically played the fall season leading up to Ernest Saves Christmas here in 1988. Then in 1990, we would get Ernest Goes to Jail. 1991.
One of my favorites. Such a good movie.
1991 was Ernest Scared Stupid.
None of these movies are technically good.
Oh, yeah. Ernest Rides Again, 1993. Ernest Goes to School, 1994, and then we get into the direct-to-video era of Slam Dunk Ernest, 1995, Ernest Goes to Africa, 1997, and Ernest in the Army, 1998.
I feel like Ernest in the Army I remember being pretty okay. I cannot fathom the idea that Ernest Goes to Africa is, like, okay. For, like, a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't imagine it.
It's interesting. One of the trivia things that kind of like I'll just kind of weave in here because I didn't actually pull the specific trivia thing, but it was basically a comment that was like, this is probably the smartest Ernest is over the course of his films is in this movie.
Yeah,
like he's actively skeptical about Harmony and leaving her alone with the sack. He puts together the whole scheme to like break Santa out of prison and stuff like that,
which is so good.
Yeah,
like this girl,
but he's not like the dumb dope that he's, most often portrayed. So this is very much like, this is the smartest Ernest we get over the series. So yeah, with that in mind, Ernest Goes to Africa, while maybe not intentionally problematic, could possibly be problematic. I'm not. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
I've never seen it,
and I'm not. Obviously not recently well versed on it, so I can't speak to it. But
just can't imagine. Just can't imagine.
I mean, 19 because we're also like this in 1988 is the year we get Coming to America. So 10 years later in 1997, Ernest Goes to Africa. We weren't great necessarily as a country still in representation.
Let me tell you about Kismet. Let me tell you about things coming full circle. All right, Coming to America, African Prince coming to America. Ernest Goes to Africa, an American prince going to Africa. There you go. There's your connection for that. Not really, but anyway.
So that was that's the run of Ernest stuff.
It sounded dumb in my head, but as I said it out loud, I'm like, this is even dumber than I thought it was.
Yeah, I just kind of was ready to roll on, but you highlighted it.
So we're good.
A roll call here. John R. Cherry III was our director, and he pretty much directed all of the Ernest stuff. And that's almost all he directed. He had like a couple other things, but that was definitely his like bread and butter was the decade of Ernest. Our writers here, Ed Turner and B. Klein. Ed Turner wrote the story and screenplay, although I did see some trivia, I don't remember who it was, but basically there like it seems like this was largely like a reworked script that somebody else had written for Disney. Mm-hmm. And then Disney like took it and were like, like the idea of Santa ready to retire in Florida or something like that was the idea of the script. And then Disney was like, we're going to turn it into an Ernest movie. And
that's wild.
And that writer basically was like, okay, well then take my name off it because I don't want to be a part of that, I guess.
That's fair. I respect it.
But Ed Turner credited here with the story and screenplay. The only other film I think in their repertoire was a film called Winner Takes All, and B. Klein on the screenplay, only Ernest Saves Christmas. Now again, that could be IMDb just doesn't have like extensive other credits for these, miscellaneous writers from the 80s, but certainly nothing of note, given that I see plenty of credits on things back to like the 20s that I've never heard of before. Mm-hmm. And then our cast of characters, of course, we have Jim Varney as Ernest P. Worrell, of course, did all of the Ernest stuff. He was also notably in the 90s film remake of the Beverly Hillbillies, which he had long touted as like one of his favorite shows from when he was younger, was the Beverly Hillbillies. So him getting to play Jed Clampett, I'm sure was like a dream come true. Toy Story, of course, as Slinky Dog. He was in Three Ninjas, High Noon at Mega Mountain, and then Toy Story 2. And then sadly, one of the last things he was in was Atlantis, The Lost Empire, before passing away far too young of lung cancer. Douglas Seal here as Santa, with credits going all the way back to 1937, including Amadeus, Ernest Saves Christmas here. He was like a small background bit part in Ghostbusters 2. And then he had kind of a run of animated stuff where he's in The Rescuers Down Under, Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, and probably most recognizably, The Sultan from Aladdin.
There you go.
Because like he's talking, I'm like, why do I know this guy? And I start like looking up the IMDb as I'm preparing and everything. I'm like, yep, there it is. That's because he's the voice of the Sultan, that unmistakable voice of the Sultan. Oliver Clark as Joe Carruthers, also with credits back to 1964, including the film They Might Be Giants, the 1976 version of A Star Is Born, Ernest Saves Christmas here, and then he was the reverse psychologist in Mystery Men. Which I imagine Logan would have gotten a kick out of. Mm-hmm. And shout out to Jazz, who also desperately loves Mystery Men. Noelle Parker here as Harmony. She's in Ernest Saves Christmas. And then the only other notable thing that I pulled in here was Clerks. And then like right before we sat down to record, I was like, who was she in Clerks? I've barely watched Clerks kind of thing.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
She is very specifically in the unaired TV Clerks pilot. So she is not in the real movie. She's in the Clerks pilot that was that Touchstone or somebody tried to make basically while Kevin Smith was making Mallrats. And it was so bad. Like Jim Brewer had been recast as like one of the like Randall or Dante or something. And yeah, it was a pilot that never aired, was deemed so bad that the studio basically axed the idea.
Was she playing?
She was Veronica, I think.
Yeah, Veronica.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes total sense because she nailed the Jersey like voice, like the Jersey girl voice.
Yeah,
absolutely nailed it in this movie. So when you said she's in Clerks, I was like, oh yeah, the voice, and then you're like, no.
Yeah,
it's like,
I mean, that like I very specifically was like, why does Clerks have a period behind it, kind of at the end of it, and in the IMDb thing, and so I went down that rabbit hole a little bit. I was like, oh, this is not that Clerks, and it was largely because I was like, who was she in Clerks? Because I've watched Clerks maybe once in my life.
I watched it a few times.
It was never like the resonant thing for me, but like I kind of obviously I know like the main Dante and Randall stuff. I know Jay and Silent Bob, obviously, because they've exceeded all that stuff. That was another like bit of trivia, was like they were putting Jay in the show, but not Silent Bob. And Kevin Smith was like, well, I own the rights to both of those characters, so you can't. And so the studio's way of getting around that was they renamed the character Ray. But yeah, it was very bad. So yeah. Gallard Sartain is in here as Chuck, who had done a lot of Hee Haw in his earlier days. He did a number of the Ernest things. He was in Fried Green Tomatoes, The Replacements, and Ali. Billy Bird as Mary Morrissey, the nice elderly lady at the Children's Hospital. With credits all the way back to 1950, including 16 Candles, Police Academy 4, the TV series Dear John, Ernest Saves Christmas, Home Alone, Dennis the Menace, and Jury Duty in her late career stuff. Bill Burge as Bobby, pretty much did a lot of the Ernest stuff, and that's like Chuck and Bobby are the two guys with the reindeer stuff. That, for those that don't didn't catch their names or whatever. And then our super stereotypical 1980s businessman Robert Lesser as Marty Brock. Had previously been in the Monster Squad. Earlier this year, he was credited as Businessman in Die Hard, and then Ernest Saves Christmas, and then he was also in the 1998 Godzilla. So shout out to
there you go.
Shout out to that. But yeah, he gets out of his car and it's like just super stereotypical businessman of like shoulder pads, like the suit, the like just everything. Yeah. I was waiting for him to pull out like a big brick cell phone or something.
100%.
Yeah. Trivia here. John Cherry, the director of the movie and most of the other Ernest movies, said that he thought this was the best of the Ernest movies. The Orlando Children's Museum featured in this movie was actually the Orlando Science Center, which has since moved to a new location. The building is now used for the city's annual Shakespeare Festival and other theater performances.
Well, there you go.
This was the first movie filmed at Disney MGM Studios, now named Disney's Hollywood Studios in Orlando, Florida. In the first draft of the film, I guess this would be the first draft of the Ernest version of the film, Ernest was going to take over the role of Santa. Though director John Cherry liked the idea, Disney balked at it, with their exact words being, quote, he would not mesh with the classic take of Santa, which again, weird because we, a few years later, we're going to get Tim Allen also as Santa. Yes. So in a similar kind of switcheroo, let's hand off the reigns, that one a little bit more violently, but yeah.
True.
As I alluded to earlier, after the first test screening in Burbank, when director John Cherry saw Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberger, they called him over to a nearby Denny's to talk. He thought they're going to use the hammer, which meant canceling his contract. Turned out that they did want to change the contract from a 3-picture deal to a 6-picture deal. John Cherry had to assign someone to keep 16-year-old Noel Parker away from the adult male crew members, as they were a bit too quote-unquote friendly. So gross. During filming, Disney was at war with the Teamsters Union. The union would picket the production for a number of weeks. And a few of the scenes for the film were shot specifically at Disney MGM Studios, but the union could not picket there due to a law against protesting on private property. Every time the film was shot outside the Disney studios, union protesters would shoot off firecrackers whenever director John Cherry yelled action. This was the first union protest at a film production in Orlando, Florida, where this movie was shot. This is the first of only 2 Ernest movies that feature Chuck and Bobby. The other being Ernest Goes to Jail. Yep. Chuck and Bobby came from a series of regional commercials titled Me and My Brother Bobby, which starred in 1986 and was created by the same ad agency responsible for the Ernest P. Worrell character. Basic premise was Chuck and Bobby were twin brothers who didn't look anything alike. The shtick was Chuck would endorse a certain product, and in some cases would incompetently perform a task in the process, while his twin brother Bobby would mostly just nod in agreement to whatever Chuck's general thoughts on the subject were. And that was like, my memory was that Bobby was just kind of like a mute kind of character, you know, the teller of a Penn and Teller duo kind of thing. So when they have like the back and forth debates over like letters, I was like, weird to hear him talking. The scene where Ernest visits friend Vern's house was shot on Residential Street at Disney's MGM Studios. The house facade would become a popular site on the backstage studio tour attraction for the theme park when it opened in 1989. The entire street would be demolished, however, for the construction of Lights, Motors, Action stunt show spectacular in 2005. That stunt show has since been replaced by Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And then lastly, I just appreciated that IMDb had this as a bit of trivia. This is the only Ernest movie on Disney Plus, which is true. This is accurate.
Good. I would like some of the other Ernest movies, but no child should be traumatized by Ernest Scared Stupid. Yeah.
So Cam, how do you think this one holds up?
I mean, here's the thing. I don't think this was like a spectacular movie for its time. Mm-hmm. So I think it holds up reasonably well in that like on the curve, it holds up pretty well. In that like
grading on a curve,
yeah, grading on that curve, it holds up well enough. Like it is a Jim Varney movie, it is an Ernest movie. He Saves Christmas.
It does what it's out to do.
Yep, it's like, hey, we're gonna introduce Ernest. He's gonna get fired from a job because he's too nice of a guy. A la every Ernest movie, to the point where he's so nice of a guy he ends up going to prison in one movie. Like that's kind of like his deal. And he picks up like some sort of like scamp. In this case, it's a young teenage girl that apparently like way too many creepy dudes were being way too friendly with on set.
Yeah,
which also makes the line. Don't you know? I'm a little bit like I'm 22. Mm-hmm. I look a lot younger than I am. I'm like, this feels like a weird line now. Thinking back to it, at the time I was like, that's a weird line. And the fact that Santa is like, okay,
yeah.
It's like I get it. It's like he's trying to play off like I'm Santa. I trust.
I know you're lying to me, but I'll go along with it for you because this is what you need to say. Yeah. The thing that threw me more around her character was at the end when they're like, yeah, she's from like Indiana. And I'm like, wait, they have been in Florida this whole time, right?
Oh yeah, no, she's a straight runaway.
A vagrant ran down to Florida. Wow, yeah, that is a wild thing that I feel like would be explored far more in a modern movie.
Oh yeah, she's straight up like been gone for a month.
Like,
they say
it is like, oh, she's been gone for a month, but I was definitely like, oh, she's been gone for a month, but like in and around Florida or in and around Orlando or something like that.
She knows people, right? And it's like, no, this is straight up like she ran away from home.
She is probably just wearing the same clothes she has been wearing the entire month. Because we never see her with a bindle or anything. Yeah.
And luckily the person that picks her up is just like the nicest dude on the planet and not going to do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. And you trust that immediately. Because how else would Santa trusts him right away?
Yeah. As he's running away from security at the airport. You know?
Yep. Which honestly, it was more of it wasn't security. It was 2 Japanese businessmen and their taxi cab driver who pointed at Ernest because Ernest was the one that blew up their suitcases with his taxi. Oh,
okay. I was apparently not paying that close attention to
I did because I was like, man, this is like a real like a.
It's definitely a time capsule in terms of like airport security stuff.
Airport security. The whole like this isn't actually TSA. This is customs. Mm-hmm. They're that lax, and it's like, man, this is definitely a pre 9/11 movie. 1000%. Like customs is like at the curb, not buried behind security or anything. Like, yeah, no, it's a lot. There's a lot about this movie that's like, man, but also it's a Florida movie. Like, straight up, this is a Florida movie. They know exactly what they are. They focus a lot on all the weirdos. But yeah, no, I think it holds up fine in that it was not a like stellar movie at the time. Like, this isn't like, we're not going to call this like Tron, where Tron at the time was like incredible, but by today's standard looks bad. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not that. It is what it is on the, like, it is what it says on the tin.
Yeah. For me is, again, especially as somebody who, like, as I'm watching this movie, I'm sitting there thinking, like, I don't think I've ever actually seen this movie.
Every Christmas for years.
I've seen a lot of Ernest things, but I don't remember these items. I don't remember these beats. I don't remember this. Like, I remember the, like, you know what I mean, a ton. I remember Hey Vern. I remember so many things. I remember, like, him in drag as kind of the, you know, auntie,
the mom
character, the mom character, whatever. Yeah. But like, I did not remember the, like, the plot here of Ernest Saves Christmas, to the point where I did think, like, okay, the Joe Carruthers character is waffling a lot. Yeah, maybe he's going to make the wrong choice, and Ernest is going to have to step into the Santa role. But yeah, as that's like happening, I'm like, that seems like they're not going to go like that. That seems like that would be a step too far to have Ernest become the new Santa.
Absolutely, Disney made the right call.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely there was a charm to this.
There certainly is. Like, it's an older Ernest movies, I feel like, have a certain charm to them, and it's because of the name, the meaning behind the character, which is it's Ernest. He's just an earnest person, mm-hmm. and he's kind and considerate and nice. And yeah, but you're like, right, this is the smartest he's ever in any of his movies. To a point where, like, I think in Ernest Scared Stupid, like, his family's curse where each generation gets stupider and stupider, if I remember correctly. To the point where, like, his, like, ancestor was, like, a very brilliant guy who, like, sealed the troll away. And then, and then Ernest is, like, his greatest descendant, and he's dumb as a sack of rocks, which is kind of the point. It's kind of that the banality and the innocence of the lack of intelligence. Mm-hmm. And certainly people who are quote unquote smart and savvy in Ernest movies are usually the villains. But they get their comeuppance by the blue collar good nature of Ernest, who's like, that's kind of like the story that's always told in these movies. I have to say, like, I really enjoy the aspect of, yeah, like, oh yeah, no, I love that show. Like, you know, all like the 3 things that never go out of style, please and thank you, like all that stuff. And it's like, man, yeah. So it's like, this is like a Mr. Rogers type guy who show gets canceled and he doesn't know what he's going to do next. And it's the perfect time for Santa to hand it off to him. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it definitely struck me as like, weird, like the weirdest bit ends up being like, how did that nice guy ever get like the sleazeball agent who doesn't care about any of his stuff, and just wants to like get his client the next payday? You wouldn't be working with that client if your client's only been doing like a weekly children's show for.
Well, unless he was one of your first clients and he's been consistently bringing you money and you feel like you owe him, so you're pushing real hard because you want to get him work.
Yeah, I guess maybe.
At the end of the day, was he? I mean, he wasn't wrong. Like, if that guy shows up, what's the best thing to do? He's a white man in Florida in the 90s. He calls the cops.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there was just such a weird charm to it. Even from like the opening, I loved. Like, I loved Santa just talking with that businessman, obviously, like giving all the like the tips away that like, he's Santa. Oh yeah, I'm from up north. I work in the toy industry. Kind of like all of his like Santa-isms that the businessman is just completely oblivious to.
Like, but like winking, giving the nod to the kid. It's that kind of stuff always is like top tier Christmas movie stuff.
Yeah. And so I loved that as like the setup. And I was like, oh, this is a good Santa. Like this guy's playing
he's a great
good
Santa.
And
Seth Applegate.
Yes, yeah, indeed. And then he, he gets like that's then juxtaposed with Ernest taking this poor guy across. One of the trivia things was like, that's basically instead of the Orlando freeway system, that is the roads into Disney World. It was basically like on the Disney property, kind of stuff. I was like, oh yeah, that checks out. given that I've now seen that, just a few months back.
I mean, it is making fun of the like the one freeway that exists in Florida.
Yeah.
They are making fun of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like just like all of the super close-ups on Jim Varney's face and all of the face mugging and stuff like that. I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely of a time.
I mean, it's like, just of an Ernest, like that's Ernest style.
He has such a charisma to it. Similar to like Chuck, all of his like eye wiggles when he like does the little bits to the camera. I was like, oh yeah, and like seeing like, oh yeah, he was on Hee Haw. I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yes,
that
100%.
like that was where he got his start, and he also played like one of the other things that this director worked on was a film of like the new adventures of Laurel and Hardy, and the guy who plays Chuck was Laurel or Hardy. I don't remember which one he was in that movie. Trashed and did not do well, but it was like they were trying to take that kind of old school comedic shtick, which this guy clearly does very, very well,
extremely well, to the point where even though it's a little weird, it somehow makes sense in the context that it's being done in.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that they lean into it a few times and just give him straight up like Looney Tunes type sound effects to go along with the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, cool. Like they know this is absurd and silly, and it's for kids. It's one of the fun little trivia bits. There was when asked why is this PG, Jim Varney said cruel reindeer punishment or something like that, because it's like, yeah, why is this PG instead of just G? Why is this not a G-rated movie? But yeah.
I think it's because there's at one point the guy who takes over Santa holds a gun at one point, like even though it's like on the acting set, I have a feeling that was probably it. Like he does do that, and there is like a setup before he's about to swear, but he doesn't. Yeah, which is like
the allusion to swearing. Yeah,
the allusion to swear. Like there's enough to like up it from a G to a PG, but like it's still like bottom level PG for sure. Yeah. There's even as much violence as there normally is in an Ernest movie.
Yeah. I like just so much fun. And then like at the core, I think like maybe why I like this so much was in addition to like just appreciating the great stuff that Jim Varney did and like seeing just how much he kind of like set the template for a lot of those other performers that we kind of already discussed in terms of like the things that they would kind of make their own in their careers. The relationship that he has with Santa is great. The relationship that he has with Harmony is great. And like he's, he calls it out kind of thing, but like, I'm going to be like a mother or a father figure to her kind of thing. And try and help her see the right. And so it gets to the point where I am like, okay, I appreciate that Santa, by the end of this movie, Santa goes to the Children's Museum is just like hoping and trusting that all of the pieces will come back together, and they do. And so we have like that plane of action of Joe leaving the business negotiation to go.
It has to start off. It's. I mean,
I'm just saying. Yes, I'm not
you're
saying
just
in
describing
order
the planes of
I'm
action.
just saying the 3 planes of action. Joe leaves because he sees Ernest riding the sleigh because Ernest is getting the sleigh from and got the reindeer and stuff. So good. And then Holly or not Holly, Harmony has her like crisis of conscience, seeing the kids deal with their Santa crisis.
Little girl looking up at her. If you have if that's a sack, why do you have it?
Yeah,
and just like that guilt, just immediate, and it's like it's like so good.
And they do the ticking clock of like, okay, your train leaves at 7 or whatever, and blah blah blah, and everything needs to happen by 7 kind of thing.
It's good classic planes of action storytelling, and they absolutely nail it. Yeah. Also, shout out to the air brakes joke, which is just superb. Also, I realized I didn't know where I got it from, and now I do. Sometimes I'll do like an aside to myself, like when I'm driving and I do something where I like there's some things that I do where I do like like
and that's just Ernest.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got that from Ernest as a kid. Just like the little.
Yeah, that's another one of those like Ernestisms that I was like, oh yeah, that immediately.
So good. I love my favorite Ernestism is when he goes, and so. And it's like that serious like narration or like pseudo narration where he's like talking big about like the things that he does or he's about. Just it's so good. I love Jim Varney so much.
Yeah. So yeah, like by the end of this, I was like, oh, like this is a genuinely good Christmas movie. Yeah, it's not in the great upper pantheon of like, I'm sure there are a good dozen or so more at least. But if you were like, I'm gonna do like, this would not surprise me if I was told that this was routinely in the like 25 Days of Christmas on ABC Family or something like that. Because
it'd have to be, right? You think it would have to be.
It definitely seems like it would be right up their alley. Obviously, it's one they already own, kind of thing. So,
yeah.
But yeah, like it just has that like classic, good-hearted Christmas stuff. And everybody kind of gets to learn their lesson. Like one of the criticisms, I guess, from a lot of like Ernest fans is that like Ernest is a very secondary character in this, where really his only contribution by the end is okay. Let's get the sleigh. But obviously,
he gives everybody a
pretty
place.
Crucial.
Yeah, he's pretty crucial. He also gives everybody a place to stay.
Yeah, he gives everybody.
He saves Santa from prison.
He gets Santa out of prison,
out of jail. Yeah. Which also shout out to that brilliant scene of Santa being like locked up with the criminals and everybody's looking tough, and then at the he comes back to him and he has them in a choir.
He's conducting them as they sing 12 Days of Christmas.
Yeah, and and a partridge in a pear tree.
And then just a whole bunch of hands clapping.
Yeah, just clap. The million hands popping out and clapping is unbelievably funny.
It's like, you didn't need to clap outside the bars.
But you did, it's such a good framing device. It's so... This movie nails its humor and it's not like an overly funny movie. It is trying to be a Christmas movie first. Mm-hmm. But the humor it nails is just so good. On a scale. Mm-hmm. Like, it's to the scale. The scale that this movie's on, like, this movie could easily be trash, bad, garbage.
Oh, you know what I bet helps get this up to a PG rating? The one shot where, like, Ernest is dropping off all the snakes from the back of his truck and it cuts to his face and he's just got 3 snakes biting his face.
Absolutely. That's like, a good reason.
3, like, very clearly fake and whatnot snakes, but still, like, oh, God. Like,
they're like,
why did they
do
face.
That
shot? Yeah, exactly. They are, like, just snatched onto his chin and cheeks. It's like, why did they do this shot? Like, obviously, yes, it is.
Well, he's like flicking the snakes off, and I guess, he's not that bothered by it. It's like he just got bit in the face a bunch of times. He doesn't care.
Yeah,
it's great. It's great. Jim,
and like the fact that Santa's like completely blasé about it.
Yep.
But yeah, like I mean, this is like again like the Santa in this is really good.
So
it's a really good Santa.
Peak Santa performance coming out of here, and also pseudo replacement Santa at the very end is easily sliding right into that role. Mm-hmm. Which is like, he already was feeling very Santa-ish. If you told me, hey, the guy who was going to be, like, the guy who auditioned for Santa but came second got the other role, I'd believe it, because it's that good. Also, when he sits down, when Santa comes in and you see you're his hair's darker, oh no. Comes out and his face is clear and he goes, how do you know where and everybody's like, oh, Santa's going to say something, but no, the first thing he says, how do you know where I live?
Yeah.
Like, so good.
Yeah. I had to, de-age myself or whatever. I
had to freshen my look.
Yeah.
Just, it's so good.
It's like, I knew that was coming, or I knew at least he was going to be clean shaven because like the art on Disney Plus was basically like Ernest and him in like a, fake Santa suit.
Yes.
With a very clearly like fake beard kind of thing. So yeah, I was, but yeah, he's good. Like his introduction at the Children's Museum with the dinosaur bit and stuff. Like he clearly like gets the kids, him, talking very, politely to the kids during the audition stuff.
Doing an amazing thing where it's like, yeah, thank you so much. Like, you guys are such great actors for kids.
Thank you for helping me.
Thank you for helping me. I was really nervous. And it's like, and they're like, he immediately gets how to connect to kids. Like from like every single scene he is where he's with a kid, connects with him immediately.
Yeah.
It's also, well, hi, I'm Harmony. No, you're not. You're just nails it. You that. How do I know that? It's so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I enjoy those. And then, we get the nice little ending there of, okay, Joe's taking over as Santa. Hey, you got a little bit more driving time on than me on this. You want to come along for the ride? And can we bring along a little helper elf? It's like, okay, that's a nice way to like tie their stories up into this, and then Harmony will go back to back to her mom's after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's just like an endearing quality to this movie, in a way that like I when I threw this on, or when I started discussing this as like a pitch a month ago or whatever for one of our holiday movies, I was like, it's probably not gonna be great, but it'll be a dumb fun kind of throwback thing. And I was like very pleasantly surprised by how much I ended up enjoying this.
As somebody who grew up watching it a lot, like almost every year, I will say that for me, I was expecting it to be a lot more cringe, a lot more like difficult to watch. Like, man, I can't believe I watched this as a kid. It's one of those dumb kids movies. And I was extremely surprised, and pleasantly so. Just incredible, like juxtaposition, being like, okay, cool. No, I did kind of have good taste. Not really. I didn't have good taste when I was a kid. Famously, I have awful taste in many things, but I was pleasantly surprised by like how I was tickled. It tickled the fancy of being like, okay, cool. This is still a pretty good movie.
Mm-hmm. Other things I want to shout out. I love the obligatory like Hey Vern stuff. And just like every time we cut back to that, like Ernest is just destroying the house even more. He's never actively like, oops, I did that or something like there's never like a did I do that kind of thing. He's just destroying and like continuing to be like excited about whatever he's talking about, or trying to help out whatever he can.
He's like, oh yeah, no, I got this. I can fix this. Yeah. Like that aspect of it is like an earnestness of like, I'm destroying your house, but I mean well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which he goes back to the commercials, I remember.
Yeah. And I also I really appreciate it. Like, this is the only time I think I've ever seen this. Their approach to how Santa has all the presents in the bin or in the bag. It's obviously like, yes, a magical bag, but they like the fact that they come out as orbs and then the magic turns them into the gift that they're supposed to be or something like that. I was like, oh, that's a cool little thing.
Oh, shout out to her. The gift she pulls out is a doll that says Mama, because what she wants to do is she wants to call her mom.
There you go. Nice. I did not did I catch that? But yes, her very visceral, like throwing that away kind of response now does resonate a little bit more.
Yep. Shout out to Santa, be like, oh, she's just been that way ever since I got her like whatever it was instead of a baseball mitt, and just being like what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, so good.
Yeah. And like him talking to the nice old lady that he's going to go on a date with seemingly after.
Oh man, when she Christmas says, Eve. She goes, I got nothing to do. We'll find something to do. And I was like, they're going to fuck.
All right, calm down.
Geriatric sex in Florida. Name a more classic duo.
Yeah, no, I appreciated his like even her being like, I don't remember when I stopped believing in Santa, and he's like, it was January 17th and blah 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 1931 or whatever. It's like yeah.
I don't think it was 1931. I don't think she's that old.
I mean this was in 88, and she would have been like a kid then.
I guess maybe, yeah. I guess that's just it's because that was almost 100 years ago.
I mean, yes, again, but this movie was 25 years ago.
That's true.
35 years ago.
35 years ago.
Sorry,
yeah. It's older than me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it's very potential. But yeah, just a lot of little like nice beats and nice moments. And I like the ways in which like Santa goes along with Ernest's schemes.
Because they're not malicious and they're not evil.
Yep. He's not trying to hurt anybody or anything like that.
Nope.
So yeah, just lots of fun little goofy stuff there. And it was very much like, while I saw it coming, the like Christmas SLAY thing, I was like I appreciate like how that's paced out and then revealed of like, okay, he opens the door, all right, and like the director's just like narrating, okay, here's what you're doing, do all these things, take the direction, and then open the door, and then it's like an alien monster from blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is clearly not Christmas sleigh or whatever. Just lots of charm to this film. Any other favorite moments or least favorite moments or anything you want to discuss?
No, I think I kind of already talked about them. The mugging, the like, like, Yes, very much so. This is a movie that I am glad that I still enjoy, and still holds up.
Yeah.
So,
well, one of the other names you mentioned earlier that is just dawning on me, like Mike Myers is definitely another person of this Jim Varney ilk of like,
yes,
obviously like the Austin Powers movies where he's playing a whole bunch of different characters kind of thing.
same thing. But also, very much like that, like aside that you see in like Wayne's World, or like there's a lot of stuff that they do that I think like Jim Varney is like an older person that is like I think a lot of inspiration for a lot of people, because he was already in like much older in his age when these movies were coming out, because he was like in his late 30s when this movie came out, because he died in 2000. He was 50. So
yeah.
If you're thinking of that, then he was 38 when this movie came out. So he was in his late 30s, which means the other guys were, in their early to mid 20s.
Yeah. I mean, this was the era that they would have been, coming up on or getting ready to go on to SNL kind of stuff. So,
yeah. Really curious to see, like, I really am curious now, like, what is Jim Varney's legacy in comedy? Like,
I mean, some of the other stuff, like he was one of the original, just like, looking at his, like he did a ton of stuff with Robin Williams. He's like one of the comedy seller people, like one of the original kind of like comedy seller in LA kind of stuff. I think it was
Comedy Sellers in New York.
Okay, then I think it was the LA one. I don't remember. But
a comedy store. So he was old school comedy store though.
I mean, maybe he was definitely like old school, like classic comedy stuff. Jim Varney trivia. Because I looked at it, like his specific trivia a little bit in IMDb, and so I think that's where some of that was. Very good friends with Robin Williams. Let's see, comedy. Yeah, well, he was, along with Robin Williams, Varney was one of Los Angeles' Comedy Store's original alumni.
There you go.
So yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah.
When given a chance to have a lifelong dream fulfilled by such groups as Make-A-Wish Foundation, several hundred terminally ill children asked to meet Ernest, and he never let them down.
There you go.
A little bit of trivia there.
Man played Slinky, man.
Yeah. Another Jim Varney trivia. Despite his persona as Ernest P. Worrell, he reportedly had a near genius IQ level. And he was said to be occasionally exasperated by fans with who met him and assumed he was just exactly like Worrell. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was a really brilliant comedian. Just good stuff.
Yeah, good friends with Blake Clark, who would take over as Slinky Dog after he passed away. He discovered he had lung cancer in August 1998 and immediately threw his cigarettes away and quit smoking cold turkey, but unfortunately it was too late. And he would pass away a couple years later.
I think that's another thing too that connects it, like that is a bit, I feel a bit connected to. My grandfather died the same way. So it's I don't know. I don't think of Jim Varney as like my grandpa, because that doesn't make sense. Jim Varney was like my dad's age. So but yeah.
So yeah, that's this one. Let's go ahead and dive into the report card grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give Ernest Saves Christmas here, Cameron?
I think it sits at like a B- or a B rank for me. I think I'm going to lean more for B just for nostalgia's sake, but like this certainly doesn't reach like the A tier for me. But I think like when you talk about like a solid Christmas film that you can just throw on, I don't know if there's like a better pick than this.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's a B for me as well. Certainly, as we kind of alluded, like that's definitely grading on a curve of sorts. But yeah, like there's a charm to this movie and an enjoyment to this movie, and I had a good time watching it, as opposed to thinking, I went into this expecting there was gonna be like a lot more cringe than there ultimately was. So shout out to that. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. Your options that Disney Plus will recommend are Home Alone, Jingle All the Way, The Santa Claus, Home Sweet Home Alone, I'll Be Home for Christmas, Miracle on 34th Street, Godmothered, and Noel. You watch anything else on Disney Plus these days, Cam?
No, not yet. I will be giving season 2 of What If a shot.
Yeah, when that starts coming out, I think here in a couple days. Rolls out one episode a day for a week and a half. I think the last thing I was really watching was Doctor Who, which we talked about a little bit last week.
Oh yeah, I'm super stoked for the Doctor Who.
Doctor Who Christmas special. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing we can do a January episode on, is like all the Doctor Who stuff that's been coming out, because it's weird that it now comes to Disney Plus. But yeah. Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show, and that'll do it again for That D Plus Show for the year of 2023 here. Thank you for joining us for, any one of these last 200 episodes we've done of this show. This was like one of the ideas I had that really got me to want to do that Nerdy Site show back in a time where I was like burnt out and didn't really feel like making kind of like internet podcasts or content anymore or anything like that. It was this and the long dormant / defunct that video game list show, that ultimate video game list show that we did back in the day. Those were like the two pitches that I had that I was like, I want to do these as concepts, and that D Plus show being our first show to hit 200 episodes is exciting. So yeah. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Kim?
I also want to talk about 200 episodes. It is. I've been with That Nerdy Site for longer than I've been with for almost as long, if not, and it will be eventually longer than I was with KG and Naughty Gamers. It's been a tremendous honor being what was originally supposed to be just a podcast producer and turned into your sidekick,
my co-host in many a thing.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm trying to remember his name, but to Conan O'Brien, I'm your fat guy on the couch.
Oh, Andy Richter.
I'm your Andy Richter. I'm the Andy Richter to your Conan O'Brien. No place I'd rather, like no other place I'd rather be.
Bobby to my Chuck.
I'm the Bobby to your Chuck for sure. Although I talk a lot more.
You talk a lot more. A lot more. Oh my God, a lot more.
But yeah, it's I feel like it's been like you and I are roommates now. Like that's how far this has gone.
That is the journey that this show has made. Yeah, we can like high five right there.
That wasn't a sound check or like a sync up. That was just a high five. Yep. Yeah, 200 episodes is a massive achievement for us. I'm super proud of it. It's longer, like proper episode wise, it's the longest show I've ever been a part of. And even though like I know this is 100% like your passion, like you love Disney way more than I do. Mm-hmm. But it's been an amazing journey to come along with you. I watched a lot of stuff I probably would never watched on my own.
Sure.
So
have I.
And I've made you watch some stuff that you never would want to watch.
Shout out to Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Yep. We're coming up on March. Time to get those numbers up. Make it the #1 episode. Let's go.
Yeah.
But seriously,
it's probably.
Yeah.
Of that D Plus shows, yeah, it's probably the #1 episode in terms of like YouTube views. Because the only other things that like beat it are old wannabe film class shows,
which also falls into people thinking
people just Googling the thing and thinking that our podcast is the thing that they're finding. So they watch it for 2 seconds. And they're like, oh, this isn't it, and click away. But
yeah,
we still get the numbers.
Hey, it's we have over 100,000 views. We have over we have several hundred subscribers. I just want to give a massive shout out to all of you. Anybody who has been, also massive shout out to everybody who's ever been part of this journey of That Nerdy Site. It was Christian's birthday the other day. Like there's been a lot of history with, and it's weird to look back and see that and be like, oh yeah, no, we have done a lot. Like sometimes we lose. I think.
We have four or five podcasts that like we started and did for a little while there that are just no longer active because people have gone off and started doing different things and stuff. But.
And just massive shout out to if you've ever been a part of this, if you've ever been a guest, if you ever want to be a guest, hit us up. I am extremely grateful to be a part of That Nerdy Site, especially as we're coming up. We just had our 4-year anniversary. We are coming up on the end of this year, and it's been almost a year. I mean, in 5 days, no, in like 8 days, it'll be a year since I moved in, which is weird.
Yeah,
it's weird that it's passed so fast.
Again, you say fast. Not the word I would choose.
Yeah, I know. We've had very different concepts of time.
Yeah.
movement. But I will say, just a massive shout out to you, Trevor. You have been the captain on this ship for a very long time. Well, I mean, the entire time. But you've been this show would not exist without you. This show would not be. That nerdy site would not exist without you. And I don't mean that just like it wouldn't have ever been created. I mean, it would still not be going. Like you have definitely, as many of us have been going through very difficult times, you have been there to be like, hey, I'm here and these shows are here when you're ready to be a part of them again. And like we've been through a lot of lows, and we've been through some pretty mid to highs. We exist in that, like that's our space. We exist there. Now I'm so massively proud of what we've done and accomplished, and I look forward to continuing on until you decide to kick me out of the house.
Fair enough. I as you were talking there, I did realize while this is the first podcast to make it to episode number 200, technically, because we did for the first couple of years back when we still had a Patreon stuff, we did like monthly bonus unnumbered episodes of that Nerdy Site show. So that's probably up around like 220 or something like that in terms of episodes, but number wise that one's still a couple weeks away from hitting 200 because we've taken off more time on that show because we just like were burnt out and didn't want to record a thing for Monday versus the number of times I've been like, screw it, I'm just going to record a solo episode about Behind the Attraction or something for that D+ show. The fact that this has like a nice stable structure that I can just kind of like, I can sit down and do a 30-minute solo show on this one if I really need to. But I do appreciate that for the most part, I didn't have to do that this year. It was mostly you joining me, or a handful of times we had Logan, or a handful of times the both of us, or the three of us. Cool.
It helps when I live with you.
It definitely makes it a lot easier. Yes. Even with this one, when Logan was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna be able to make it," you hadn't gotten home from work yet or whatever, and you tend to work late. So I was like, "Oh, it's entirely possible Cameron's going to get home. He's going to be too burnt out. He's going to not want to do this. So we can either record it tomorrow since we're recording this a day earlier than we usually would, or this is one I would have been perfectly fine to just kind of go through and do as a solo thing of like, hey, I was very pleasantly surprised by this, but I appreciated that you were able to sit down, watch it, and enjoy it. So,
yep, I came home and I was like, I'm gonna make 3 grilled cheese sandwiches because that's what I have in the fridge. And I don't have the excuse to go and get food because I did not come home after 8 p.m. So I got home a little after 6. So the only reason I came home this late, though, is because I won't be in the office for like 5 days, and I did not water the plants over the last day or two. So I needed to do that before I left. Also, 2 of the plants that are the newer plants in my office space. Also, they're not all my plants. I'm plant sitting for some people. So there's responsibility.
Sure.
Also, we have 2 new plants that started to get burned because they had too much sunlight. So I had to maneuver them. Also rewater everything. Listen, nobody's more surprised. This year has been a year of surprises for me. 1, I became like a plant dad. And like take that very seriously. And 2, I play Fortnite now. So like,
there you go.
This is a year of surprises. Okay?
A wild year for you.
Absolutely.
Anyway, you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter. I will shout out, by the time this episode has gone up, my Baldur's Gate 3 Let's Play series has completed. So you can watch my final couple episodes from this last week, where I made my way up to the Netherbrain and then took out the Netherbrain. And fortunately, I waited long enough, or it took me long enough to play through this game that I was able to get the epilogue that was recently released in there too. So I can go kind of see my epilogue adventure with Tyson Bahamutza and his party of misfits. Go check out all that stuff, youtube.com/thatnerdysite. That also our Let's Plays will kind of be taking a break for a little while now while we kind of recharge over the holidays. And again, we'll figure out what we're going to do kind of when the new year comes. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest, including a whole bunch of of the year things that will start rolling out probably in 2024 here.
Yeah.
Our favorite games, our favorite movies, my favorite actual plays that I watched or listened to this year, all that fun stuff.
My top 10 animes of the year.
There you go.
Get excited for it. It's happening.
If you liked what you heard, once again, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed. You know what I mean?
Now, mate.